Do it.
I can't. That's just not who I am anymore.
I don't care. Do it, or the Furby dies.
So, March of the Machines Aftermath is... well, it's not here yet. Well, I mean, the entire set is spoiled, but it's not... you know what? It doesn't really matter. The story for this quote-unquote set is out, and by popular demand, I'm going to give you my opinion on it. Okay, here we go. It sucks ass. Video's over. Okay, fine. After the lobotomizing experience that was March of the Machines, WotC realized that they really needed to deliver on that whole "this will change everything" pitch that they used to sell this set to the Vorthos community, and for some reason they thought that the events of these two stories would be enough to cover their asses. Okay, also, just so we're clear, at the time of recording this, there's only two very short, very vague stories made. Maybe they're going to be more put out in the future, but right now it's been over a week and there's no sign of more being released, so for now I'm assuming that this is all that there is. I'll try to be brief, summarizing and opinionizing these two stories. The first one follows our favorite racist elf Nissa as she deals with the trauma that was being a fucking Phyrexian, as well as the realization that she's no longer a planeswalker anymore. Why she's not a planeswalker isn't really clarified, and this story tries to be vague about it, but it's basically implied that when Elspeth did her big fuck-up in All Will Be One, the Silex Blessed going off in the Blind Eternities absolutely fucked up the multiverse again. On one hand, this results in little holes being poked in the fabric of reality across the planes, so now everyone can theoretically just go from one plane to another. You know, the thing that the mending fixed. On the other hand, this seems to have somehow caused random planeswalkers across the multiverse to lose their sparks, and it's not really clear who or why. So, on the surface, this could in theory be a really cool change to the multiverse. I mean, how cool would it be for a Legion of Dusk vampire to drop in on Ravnica and be amazed by the sights and sounds, and we, as viewers, could enjoy watching the travels of these regular people through the multiverse. But then, when you think about it, that's what modern planeswalkers are. It's easy for people to forget that, for all intents and purposes, planeswalkers are fairly normal people in the Magic setting. They just happen to have the ability to freely move between worlds and travel, so if the purpose of this change was to show how someone from one plane reacts to another as they travel around, then, fuckers, we already have that. I mean, we all know the real reason WotC did this. It was so that classic planeswalkers could be legendary creatures, so that these characters could be marketed towards Commander, but guess what? That was also unnecessary, because you don't have to take their spark away to give them a creature card, and you don't need to give them a creature card for them to be a Commander. This entire thing feels arbitrary, and to top it all off, the last time holes were poked in everything, poked throughout reality like this, the temporal crisis threatened to wipe out everything. So what, is the entire multiverse now just in super danger all the time right now? I feel like the story team didn't do a great job of fucking thinking this one through, because it feels really poorly planned out in some parts and just needlessly redundant in others. It's actually quite impressive when you think about it, because it's like a multi-layered failure cake that just keeps getting worse as you dig down into it now. Fuck! Breathe. Breathe. Alright, so I will give them 2+1s for this story. There's obviously the thing every Twitter and Tumblr activist has been wanting, and that's Chandra and Nissa's little romance thing being back on track. And while cool, I'm glad that these two seem to be sorting their shit out, I'm also skeptical that it will last long, because, come on, look at what happened last time. The other thing is that, like, apparently Nissa just kept her Phyrexian body around to bury it? I was so confused, but I also found this hilarious because, like, why? I mean, I understand if I had a kick-ass metal shedding/skeleton of my half-robot days, I'd probably want to keep it, but that's just me. Nissa? I can't think of a reason she'd want to bury it, because it doesn't even work symbolically, because she's clearly not over it. Anywho, this story ends with Nissa and Chandra saving a village from some monsters, finding the source of the monsters is some hole in reality, and walking through that hole together to hopefully get Nissa home to Zendikar. The end, who gives a fuck? The second story, however, is where I really get riled up, because this one raises more questions that straight up do not have answers. And no, it's not that I think WotC has answers they just aren't sharing. I think there's just not answers to these questions, okay? Here we go. Question number the fucking one. How in the hell did Nahiri get cured from her Phyrexianization? For everyone else, we're told there's a very delicate, very careful process that was needed to wake them up and cure them after Elishnorn's defeat. But Nahiri somehow is fine just ripping the metal off of her. What the fuck? How? Bitch, it's not like the metal is just skin deep. Phyrexia changes your bones and blood and shit. Second of the fucking questions, how in the name of Nahiri's cheese factories did her spark leave her body and end up in a random fuck-off rock? This one's a bit easier to believe because, first off, sparks are weird. They have all kinds of bullshit rules and they never really seem to be consistent. But also, she did fuse her essence to the Skyclave when she was in it, and maybe her spark somehow got ripped out of her and ended up in a rock? Who knows? It's a very brittle rock, by the way. Pay attention to that. It'll come up in a bit. Anywho, this story is long-winded, but really only three things happen here. Thing number one, Nahiri wakes up buried under the rubble of the Skyclave and has a lot of time to herself to think about what a shitty person she's been while she tries to peel off all the metal of the Skyclave, which, about that, this story says that completion somehow fuses metal and stone on a molecular level. How the fuck would that work? How would the oil do that? Wouldn't that make a brand new substance that would be basically fucking impossible to realistically pull apart into its composing parts? Fuck off with that, WotC. Anywho, thing two is that Ajani shows up and just starts talking to her. Ajani obviously expected to find Nahiri dead because, fuck it, she was buried under a floating city, but when he sees she's alive, our glorious Catman asks her to join him in helping the multiverse. Now, you all know Ajani. You know that he's basically Wholesome 101, super cat friend, all-around stand-up guy. Nahiri's like the exact opposite. Unwholesome 101, super bitch, all-around awful person. And Nahiri, she immediately jumps to conclusions and assumes Ajani's actually here to assassinate her. So, she gets ready to attack Ajani, which leads to her overestimating her control of the Earth, which leads to her falling, which directly leads into thing number the third, and thing number three is Nahiri just fucking drops her spark. It breaks, it's gone. Yep. No esoteric bullshit here, no great mystery, just tee-hee, whoops, I dropped it. Fucking hell. Nahiri, nobody can have good things in her presence. Even her. Anywho, this story ends with Nahiri swan diving into the deep end once again and vowing to never again let planeswalkers step foot on Zendikar, and I'm sure that will be relevant the next time we see her. So, in the end, these stories were bad. Not the worst, of course. March of the Machines was unfinishable for me, and, you know, all that, but these were still bad, because the events that transpire were awful, and the lack of any actual answers for what's going on. Why are the sparks gone? What happened to Elspeth? What happened to Sarkhan and Ob Nixilis? Where are their sparks? Did they drop them too? What about Calyx? That guy didn't even get to do anything. He didn't appear in any actual stories, and now he's lost his spark somehow? Didn't he, like, just kind of wish it into existence? This set and the story attached to it feel like a brief fever dream that can and should be forgotten. I know I say it a lot, but I need to stress it. My expectations were low, and WotC still disappointed me. Anywho, that's all I've got for you today. Thank you so much for sticking around to listen to me ramble. Please like or subscribe or comment or share with friends or maybe even support me on Patreon. I'd love you so very, very much if you did. Alright, thanks, bye-bye, I'll see you in the next one.